A small act of kindness. The late afternoon sun bathed the trees in Everdale Park with a soft golden hue. It was the kind of evening that brought the world to life. Children laughing as they raced across the playground, joggers pounding out steady rhythms on the trails, and couples walking hand in hand, sharing quiet moments. Yet, Jameer Weston, a 16-year-old high school junior, wasn't there to enjoy the ambience. For him, the park was a shortcut, a means to get to the corner store where he would pick up groceries for his mother. His family had little, but they made do, and Jameer often took it upon himself to lighten his mom's load. As he walked the gravel path, his sneakers crunching softly against the stones, his thoughts were elsewhere: his homework, his sister's teasing antics, and the ever-looming question of college. He'd always been a dreamer, imagining himself as an engineer one day, building bridges or designing solutions to solve problems. But dreams didn't pay bills, and he knew his mother's 2 jobs barely kept their family afloat. College seemed more like a distant hope than an achievable goal. Halfway through the park, Jameer's attention snagged on something unusual. Sitting on a weathered wooden bench near the playground was a tan leather purse. It looked out of place, abandoned even. Jameer slowed his pace, his curiosity piqued. No one else seemed to notice it, their lives moving along as if the small forgotten item didn't exist. He paused, instinct telling him to keep walking. It wasn't his business after all. But another voice, quieter yet firmer, told him to do the right thing. He hesitated for a moment before finally approaching the bench. The purse was well worn but sturdy, with a few scuff marks along the edges. It seemed to carry stories, perhaps of a busy life full of errands and moments of forgetfulness. Glancing around to ensure no one was watching, Jameer picked it up. It felt light in his hands. Tentatively, he unzipped the main compartment and found a wallet, a set of keys, and a crumpled receipt. The ID inside the wallet displayed the name and photo of a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. Linda Carson. Jameer let out a small sigh. He knew what he had to do. Leaving the purse, there wasn't an option. What if the woman came back for it and found it gone? Shoving it into his backpack, he resolved to find her address and return it. The walk home felt heavier than usual. It wasn't just the added weight of the purse, but the responsibility it represented. When he reached his small, tidy apartment, his younger sister, Tasha, greeted him with her usual energy. Her wide eyes zeroed in on the purse as soon as he set it down on the table. "Did you find that? Is it full of money?" she asked, leaning closer as if the purse might hold untold treasures. "No, Tasha," Jameer replied, pulling out the wallet and flipping it open to show her. "It belongs to someone. Linda Carson. Her ID's right here." Tasha wrinkled her nose in mild disappointment. "So, what are you gonna do with it?" Jameer's reply was firm. "I'm going to return it." Their mother, a woman with kind but tired eyes from years of hard work, entered the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She took in the scene with a raised brow. "You're doing the right thing, Jameer," she said after a moment. "But be careful, okay? Not everyone trusts a stranger knocking on their door." Her words carried weight. Jameer knew exactly what she meant, even if she didn't spell it out. As a black teen in a predominantly white neighborhood, his intentions might be misunderstood. Still, he couldn't let that stop him. Somewhere out there, Linda Carson was likely panicked over her lost belongings. The next day, a mission begins. The following morning, Jameer double-checked the address on the ID and hopped on his beat-up bike. The cool autumn air nipped at his face as he pedaled through the neighborhood. His nerves buzzed with every turn of the wheels. What if she accused him of stealing? What if she thought he was up to no good? These thoughts swirled in his mind, but he pushed them aside. Doing the right thing wasn't supposed to be easy. When he finally arrived at the modest brick house with a porch swing swaying gently in the breeze, he felt his chest tighten. Taking a deep breath, he leaned his bike against the railing, adjusted the straps of his backpack, and approached the door. The purse felt heavier now, as if it carried the weight of all his anxieties. The doorbell's chime echoed, and Jameer stepped back, waiting. Footsteps approached, and the door creaked open to reveal a woman matching the photo on the ID. Linda Carson stood before him, her expression shifting from suspicion to confusion, and then to relief as her eyes landed on the purse in his hands. "Miss Carson," Jameer began, holding it out. "I found this in the park yesterday. Thought you'd want it back." Linda's hand flew to her chest as she gasped. "Oh my goodness," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought it was gone forever." She took the purse with shaky hands, her eyes scanning its contents. Jameer watched as her relief deepened into gratitude. Everything was there: the wallet, the keys, even a photo of a smiling man tucked neatly into one of the compartments. "You didn't take anything," Linda said, her voice soft with disbelief. "No, ma'am," Jameer replied earnestly. "I just wanted to make sure it got back to you." For a moment, Linda simply stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, to Jameer's surprise, a warm smile spread across her face. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much." Jameer felt a flush of pride and embarrassment at the same time. He didn't think he'd done anything extraordinary, but Linda's reaction made him feel like he had. "Please," she said, stepping aside. "Come in. At least let me get you something to drink. You've gone out of your way to do this." Jameer hesitated. His bike was still leaning against the porch railing, and he wasn't sure he wanted to step into a stranger's home. But there was something genuine in Linda's insistence, something that made him trust her. Reluctantly, he nodded and stepped inside. Inside the house, the scent of lavender and freshly brewed coffee enveloped him. It was cozy and warm, filled with framed photos on the walls and little trinkets that spoke of a life well lived. Linda led him to the kitchen, where she set a glass of lemonade and a small plate of cookies in front of him. "It's the least I can do," she said, sitting across from him. As Jameer sipped the lemonade, Linda opened up the purse again, her hands lingering on the photo of the man. "This is my husband," she said quietly. "He passed away a few years ago. I keep his picture with me everywhere I go." Losing this purse, it felt like losing him all over again. Jameer shifted in his seat, unsure how to respond. "I'm sorry," he said softly. Linda smiled faintly, brushing away a tear. "You've done more than you realize, Jameer, and I'd like to do something for you in return." Before Jameer could protest, Linda leaned forward, her expression one of quiet determination. "You're a remarkable young man," she said, "and I think you deserve a chance to achieve whatever dreams you have." An unlikely connection. Jameer blinked at Linda, her words echoing in his ears. He wasn't used to such direct praise, especially from strangers. It left him unsure how to respond. Her words, though kind, seemed far too grand for something he considered small, a simple act of returning what wasn't his. Linda noticed his hesitation and offered a softer smile. "I can see you're not used to this," she said, her voice gentle. "But believe me, Jameer, not everyone would have done what you did, especially when it might have been easier to just walk away." Jameer shrugged, staring at the glass of lemonade in front of him. "I didn't do it for anything," he muttered, embarrassed. "It just felt like the right thing to do. And that's exactly why I want to help you," Linda said, leaning forward. Her tone shifted, becoming more curious. "Tell me, Jameer, what are your dreams? What do you want for your future?" Caught off guard by the question, Jameer hesitated. He rarely shared his aspirations, even with friends. Dreaming felt risky when he saw how hard his mother worked just to make ends meet. But something about Linda's earnest expression, the way she seemed genuinely interested, made him take a chance. I've always wanted to be an engineer," he admitted, his voice tentative. "I like figuring out how things work, building stuff. I think it's amazing how you can take an idea and turn it into something real." Linda's eyes lit up. "That's wonderful. Engineering is such an incredible field. What kind of engineer do you want to be? Jamir fidgeted with the edge of his hoodie. I'm not sure yet. Maybe civil engineering. Or mechanical. I've been reading about both. But honestly, college, it feels so far away. My mom's already working so hard, and we barely have enough to get by. I don't know if it's even possible. The vulnerability in his voice tugged at Linda's heart. She saw a young man full of potential, held back only by circumstances he couldn't control. For a moment, she was reminded of her late son, Kyle, who had once been full of big dreams too. You remind me of my son, she said quietly, her gaze drifting to a framed photo on the wall. It showed a young man in a cap and gown, his smile wide and full of promise. Jamir glanced at the photo, then back at Linda. Your son? He asked, his voice laced with curiosity. Linda nodded, her expression bittersweet. His name was Kyle. He passed away 5 years ago in a car accident. He wanted to be an architect, just like you want to be an engineer. He had this incredible ability to see beauty in things others overlooked. Losing him, it changed everything. The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling between them. Jamir shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to respond. I'm sorry, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Linda offered him a small, reassuring smile. Thank you. But you know, I believe in honoring his memory by helping others. That's why, when you showed up with my purse, I knew I had to do something for you. I think Kyle would have wanted that. Jamir looked down, feeling a mix of gratitude and unease. You don't have to do anything for me, Miss Carson. I just wanted to help. Linda's smile widened. I know you didn't do it for a reward, Jamir. That's what makes it so special, and that's exactly why I'm going to help you, whether you think you need it or not. The following morning, Linda began her mission. She spent hours reaching out to friends, colleagues, and local community leaders, sharing Jamir's story. She painted a vivid picture of a young man with integrity, determination, and dreams too big to be confined by his circumstances. Her first call was to Mr. Reynolds, the director of a nonprofit organization that provided scholarships to underprivileged youth. As she recounted Jamir's actions, her voice brimmed with pride. This boy didn't just return my purse, she said. He restored my faith in kindness. Mr. Reynolds was intrigued. A young man with that kind of character deserves a chance, he said. Have him stop by our office next week, and we'll see what we can do. Next, Linda contacted her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a retired teacher who had started a free tutoring program for local teens. When Linda explained Jamir's interest in engineering, Mrs. Henderson didn't hesitate. If he's serious about engineering, he'll need strong math and science skills, she said. I'd be happy to help him prepare. By the end of the day, Linda had assembled a small network of support for Jamir. A scholarship lead, a tutoring opportunity, and even a potential summer internship with a local architect who had once mentored her son. The process had been exhausting but invigorating. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of purpose that filled the void Kyle's loss had left behind. Meanwhile, Jamir went about his weekend as usual. He helped his mom clean the apartment, played video games with Tasha, and tried not to dwell too much on Linda's promise. Part of him didn't want to get his hopes up. People often said things in the heat of the moment but didn't follow through. He couldn't let himself believe too much in something that might not happen. On Monday evening, his phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. Hesitating for a moment, he answered. Jamir, it's Linda Carson, came the familiar voice. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. Jamir sat up straighter, surprised. No, ma'am. Is everything okay? Better than okay, Linda replied, her tone bright. I've been making some calls, and I've got some people who want to meet you. Can you stop by my house tomorrow afternoon? Jamir agreed, curiosity mingling with nervousness. The next day, he found himself once again on Linda's doorstep, his palms damp with sweat. When she opened the door, her smile was as warm and inviting as before. "Come in, Jameer," she said, stepping aside. "We've got a lot to talk about." Inside the living room, Jameer was greeted by three strangers: Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Henderson, and a man Linda introduced as Mr. Jacobs, a local architect. Each of them looked at Jameer with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. "Jameer," Linda began, her voice full of pride, "these are some friends of mine who believe in helping young people achieve their dreams. They've heard your story and want to support you." Jameer's eyes widened as Linda introduced each person and explained how they could help. Mr. Reynolds spoke first, his voice warm and encouraging. "We run a scholarship program for students just like you, bright, hardworking, and determined. I'd like to help you apply for funding to cover your college expenses." Next, Mrs. Henderson chimed in. "Linda tells me you're interested in engineering. I've been a math and science tutor for years, and I'd love to help you strengthen your skills so you're ready for college-level work." Finally, Mr. Jacobs leaned forward, his hands clasped. "I run a small architecture firm, and we offer summer internships to high school students. If you're interested, I'd be happy to show you what it's like to work in the field." Jameer sat in stunned silence, the weight of their offers sinking in. These weren't just opportunities, they were lifelines, each one pulling him closer to the dreams he'd kept locked away for so long. "I don't know what to say," he stammered, his voice thick with emotion. "Say you'll take the help," Linda said, her eyes twinkling. "You've already done the hard part, Jameer, proving you're worth believing in." For the first time, Jameer allowed himself to believe that his future might hold more than just distant dreams. Sitting in that cozy living room, surrounded by people who believed in him, he felt something he hadn't dared to feel in a long time: hope. The turning point. The afternoon sun was beginning to cast golden hues through the windows of Linda's living room. Jameer sat still, gripping the edge of his chair, his mind a whirl of emotions. The strangers around him, Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Henderson, and Mr. Jacobs, had just offered him opportunities he hadn't dared to dream of. Scholarships, tutoring, and an internship. It felt too good to be true. Linda broke the silence, her voice gentle yet firm. "Jameer, I know this is overwhelming, but it's real. These are people who believe in you, just like I do." Jameer swallowed hard, his voice hesitant. "I don't know if I deserve all this." Mrs. Henderson smiled warmly, her hands folded in her lap. "Jameer, deserving something isn't always about where you come from or what you've done in the past. It's about who you are now and who you want to become. From what Linda's told us, you've got the character and drive to succeed. That's all that matters." Mr. Reynolds leaned forward, his tone encouraging. "You took the initiative to return Linda's purse, even when it would have been easier to leave it behind. That says a lot about your integrity, Jameer. And if you're willing to work hard, we're willing to help." Jameer shifted in his seat, struggling to find the words. "I've just never had anyone believe in me like this. My mom always tells me to aim high, but it's hard to see how to get there." Mr. Jacobs chuckled softly. "That's what mentors and opportunities are for, my boy. None of us gets anywhere alone. We all need a hand up sometimes." Linda nodded, her eyes glistening. "You've already taken the first step, Jameer, allowing yourself to hope. Now let's take the next steps together, embracing the unknown." The following week was a whirlwind for Jameer. Linda accompanied him to his first meeting with Mr. Reynolds at the nonprofit office. As they walked inside, Jameer's nerves felt like a tight knot in his stomach. The small office was bustling with activity. Phone calls ringing, staff chatting, and students filling out applications at desks. Despite the lively atmosphere, Jameer felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. Mr. Reynolds greeted them with a warm handshake, his smile as steady as it had been during their first meeting. "Jameer, it's good to see you again," he said, ushering them into his office. "Let's talk about your goals and what we can do to help." For the next hour, Jameer answered questions about his aspirations, his favorite subjects, and the challenges he faced at home. He spoke about his mother's hard work, his sister's playful energy, and his own quiet determination to be the first in his family to attend college. Mr. Reynolds listened intently, jotting down notes. When Jamer finished, he leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "You've got a great story, Jamer. Now we need to turn that story into an application that stands out. I'll assign one of our counselors to guide you through the process. With your drive and our support, I think we can secure a scholarship for you." Jamer left the office that day with a folder full of information and a growing sense of possibility. For the first time, he began to see a path forming, one paved with hard work, yes, but also with hope. The lessons begin. A few days later, Jamer found himself at Mrs. Henderson's house, seated at her dining table with a stack of math textbooks in front of him. The retired teacher was energetic and sharp, her enthusiasm for learning infectious. "All right, Jamer," she said, adjusting her glasses. "If you want to be an engineer, you need to be best friends with math. Let's start with algebra and work our way up." Jamer wasn't sure how he felt about math being his best friend, but he nodded and got to work. For hours they tackled equations and formulas, Mrs. Henderson patiently explaining concepts that had always seemed confusing in school. Her one-on-one attention made a world of difference. By the end of the session, Jamer felt a small surge of pride. He'd solved problems he hadn't thought he could. "You're a quick learner," Mrs. Henderson said, beaming. "Keep this up, and you'll be ready for college-level math in no time." Jamer grinned shyly. "Thanks, Mrs. Henderson. I think I actually get it now." She chuckled. "Good, because next time, we're diving into calculus. A taste of the future." The internship with Mr. Jacobs was the most daunting prospect of all. When Jamer arrived at the architecture firm for his first day, he was struck by the sleek, modern design of the office. Glass walls, high ceilings, and intricate models of buildings filled the space. It was a far cry from the small apartment he called home. Mr. Jacobs greeted him with a firm handshake. "Welcome, Jamer. Today, I'm going to show you what it's like to bring ideas to life." Jamer spent the day shadowing Mr. Jacobs, watching as he sketched designs, discussed projects with clients, and reviewed blueprints with his team. He even let Jamer try his hand at a computer-aided design (CAD) program, guiding him as he created a basic model of a bridge. "You've got a natural eye for detail," Mr. Jacobs remarked as Jamer worked. "Engineering and architecture aren't just about technical skills. They're about creativity and vision. And I see plenty of both in you." By the end of the day, Jamer was exhausted but exhilarated. Seeing the possibilities of what his future could hold ignited a fire within him. He wanted this, not just the career but the sense of purpose that came with it. A new perspective. As Jamer's weeks filled with tutoring sessions, scholarship meetings, and internship days, he began to notice subtle changes in himself. He walked with more confidence, his shoulders no longer hunched under the weight of doubt. At school, he started speaking up more in class, surprising even his teachers with his newfound focus. At home, his mother noticed the difference too. One evening, as Jamer helped her fold laundry, she smiled at him, her eyes shining with pride. "You've been different lately," she said, "like you found something to hold on to." Jamer nodded, his voice steady. "I think I have, Mom. And it's thanks to Miss Carson. She's done so much for me." His mother placed a hand on his shoulder, her grip firm yet loving. "Don't sell yourself short, Jamer. You've always had it in you. She just helped you see it, paying it forward." Jamer's journey wasn't just about his own growth. Linda had taught him the power of kindness and the importance of helping others. Inspired by her example, he began mentoring younger kids at his school, helping them with their homework and encouraging them to dream big. One afternoon, as he sat with a group of sixth graders at the library, one of them asked, "Why do you help us, Jamer?" He smiled, thinking of Linda and all she had done for him. "Because someone helped me," he said simply. "And now it's my turn to do the same." By the end of that transformative month, Jamir no longer doubted his worth or his future. With the support of Linda and the community she had rallied around him, he saw not just a path but a calling. To work hard, to give back, and to believe in the power of small acts of kindness to change lives. The ripple effect. Jamir's life had taken a sharp turn in the weeks since he returned Linda Carson's purse. What began as a small, kind act had grown into something much larger, an entire community rallying behind him. Opportunities were unfolding before him, opportunities he never imagined would be within his reach. Yet the deeper he stepped into this new chapter of his life, the more he began to notice the ripple effects of his actions, not just on himself, but on those around him. A growing bond. Linda had quickly become a mentor and confidant to Jamir. They began meeting regularly, usually on her cozy porch swing or in her lavender-scented kitchen. She always had a pot of coffee brewing and a plate of cookies or fruit ready to share. Jamir found comfort in their talks, which often veered into topics he rarely discussed with anyone else: his struggles at school, his dreams for the future, and the weight of responsibility he felt at home. "You know," Linda said one afternoon as they sat on the porch, "you're not just changing your own life, Jamir. You're inspiring others to believe in something bigger." Jamir raised an eyebrow, uncertain. "Inspiring? Me? I'm just trying to get through each day." Linda smiled warmly. "That's exactly why you're inspiring. You're showing people that doing the right thing matters, even when it's hard. You didn't just find my purse. You found hope for a lot of people, including me." Jamir glanced out at the street, the weight of her words settling on him. He never thought of himself as a role model. He was just a kid trying to do his best. But Linda's unwavering belief in him made him wonder if there was more to him than he realized. Challenges at school. While Jamir's personal life was flourishing, school remained a battleground. He had always been a quiet student, slipping under the radar of both teachers and classmates. But now, with Linda's encouragement, he started speaking up more in class and seeking help when he needed it. It wasn't easy. He still felt the occasional sting of judgment from peers who didn't understand his newfound drive. One day in physics class, Jamir worked up the courage to ask Mr. Carter, his teacher, a question about torque, a concept that had always puzzled him. His classmates exchanged looks, surprised to see the usually reserved Jamir raising his hand. Mr. Carter smiled, pleased by Jamir's initiative. "That's a great question, Jamir. Let me break it down for you." As Mr. Carter explained, Jamir took detailed notes, determined to master the material. After class, a few students approached him. "Hey man," one of them said, his tone half teasing, half genuine. "You trying to be the next Einstein or something?" Jamir shrugged, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Just trying to figure out how stuff works. You know, engineer things." Though the comment was lighthearted, it sparked a shift. Slowly, his classmates began to see him in a new light, not as the quiet kid in the back of the room, but as someone with ambition and potential. It wasn't long before a few of them started asking him for help with their homework. Home front struggles. At home, things were as hectic as ever. Jamir's mother continued to work long hours at her 2 jobs, and his younger sister, Tasha, had a knack for turning every chore into a game or an argument. Despite the challenges, their small apartment felt warmer than usual. Jamir's growing confidence had brought a sense of hope to their family, even if unspoken. One evening, as they sat at the kitchen table folding laundry, Jamir's mom looked at him with a mixture of pride and worry. "You've been working so hard lately," she said. "Between school, that tutoring, and the internship, I don't know how you keep it all together." Jamir paused, considering her words. "I think it's because I've got people who believe in me now," he admitted, "and because I want to make things better for us, Mom." She reached across the table and squeezed his hand, her eyes glistening. "You're already making things better, Jamir. Just don't forget to take care of yourself too, okay?" Linda's big idea. As Jamir juggled school, tutoring sessions, and his internship with Mr. Jacobs, Linda continued to work behind the scenes. One evening, as Jameer visited her for another check-in, she greeted him with an excited gleam in her eye. "Jameer, I've been thinking," she began as she poured him a glass of lemonade. "What if we turned your story into something even bigger?" Jameer blinked, confused. "Bigger? Like what?" Linda leaned forward, her enthusiasm bubbling over. "A community project. Something that encourages others to step up and make a difference, just like you did. We could start a program for young people, scholarships, mentoring, maybe even workshops to help kids explore careers like engineering." Jameer stared at her, overwhelmed by the idea. "Miss Carson, I'm just one person. How could I start something like that?" Linda smiled knowingly. "You don't have to do it alone, Jameer. That's the beauty of a community. You inspire people, and they'll want to help. I've already spoken to a few of my friends, and they love the idea. All we need is your blessing to move forward." Jameer hesitated, the weight of the proposal sinking in. It was a lot to take in, but the thought of giving back to others, of helping kids like him find their way, filled him with a sense of purpose he couldn't ignore. "All right," he said finally, his voice steady. "Let's do it." Planting seeds of change. With Jameer's approval, Linda sprang into action. She organized a meeting at the local community center, inviting educators, business leaders, and parents to discuss the initiative. Jameer attended reluctantly, feeling out of place among the well-dressed adults. But as Linda introduced him to the crowd, sharing his story with pride, he felt a spark of confidence. "This young man didn't just return my purse," Linda said, her voice ringing with conviction. "He reminded me, and all of us, that small acts of kindness can create big ripples. I believe in Jameer, and I believe in what we can accomplish together." The audience erupted in applause, and Jameer felt a swell of pride. For the first time, he realized that his actions had the power to inspire others. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about building something bigger. The first steps. Over the next few weeks, the project began to take shape. They named it Bright Futures, a program dedicated to empowering underprivileged youth through scholarships, mentorship, and skill-building workshops. Local businesses pledged funding, schools offered support, and volunteers signed up to mentor students. Jameer became the program's unofficial ambassador, speaking at schools and community events about the importance of kindness and perseverance. Though public speaking terrified him at first, Linda coached him through it, reminding him to speak from the heart. "You don't need to be perfect, Jameer," she said. "Just be yourself. That's more than enough." At his first event, a room full of middle school students stared at him expectantly as he stood at the podium. His palms were sweaty, and his voice wavered as he began. "Hi, I'm Jameer," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "A few weeks ago, I was just like you, unsure of my future, not sure if I could make my dreams happen. But then something changed. I did one small thing, and it turned into something bigger than I ever imagined." By the end of his speech, the students were clapping enthusiastically, some even standing to cheer. Jameer's heart swelled with pride. He might have started small, but now he was part of something extraordinary. The ripple effect of Jameer's kindness was spreading, touching lives far beyond his own. As Bright Futures gained momentum, he began to see that his story wasn't just about returning a lost purse. It was about how a single act of goodness could transform an entire community. And in the process, it transformed him too. Rising to the challenge. The success of Bright Futures felt like a whirlwind to Jameer. In just a few short weeks, the project had gone from an ambitious idea to a thriving community initiative. While Linda worked tirelessly behind the scenes, Jameer had become its face. A role he never expected, let alone asked for. But the more he embraced it, the more he realized how much it meant to him. Every day brought new challenges. Balancing school, his internship, tutoring sessions, and now speaking engagements left him feeling stretched thin. Yet every time he considered stepping back, he thought of the kids looking up to him. the volunteers counting on him, and the opportunities he'd been given. He couldn't let them, or himself, down. A test of strength. The first real test of Jameer's resolve came on a gray Wednesday afternoon. He was scheduled to speak at a local elementary school to inspire a group of fifth graders. On top of that, he had a physics test that morning, an internship meeting at lunch, and a tutoring session with Mrs. Henderson that evening. As he sat in his physics class, the numbers and formulas on the test paper swam before his eyes. He'd studied hard, but his tired mind struggled to focus. Taking a deep breath, he forced himself to work through the questions one at a time, channeling the discipline he'd learned from weeks of preparation. By the time he reached the elementary school, he felt drained. Standing in the small gymnasium, staring at rows of eager young faces, he doubted his ability to inspire anyone. "Jameer, you're up," the principal said, motioning him to the stage. Jameer's palms were sweaty as he stepped up to the microphone. He glanced at the crowd, his mind blank. For a moment, he considered backing out, letting someone else take over. But then he spotted a boy in the front row, his eyes wide with curiosity. And Jameer saw himself in that child, unsure of his place in the world, but yearning for something more. "Hi," Jameer began, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm Jameer Weston. A few months ago, I never would have imagined standing here in front of you, but something happened that changed my life." As he spoke, his confidence grew. He shared his story, not just about finding Linda's purse, but about the choices that followed, the decision to step up, to work hard, and to believe in himself. By the time he finished, the room erupted in applause. The boy in the front row smiled up at him, his face alight with hope. Jameer left the gym feeling lighter. It wasn't just about inspiring others. It was about proving to himself that he could rise to any challenge. Growing pains. While bright futures thrived, it also brought unexpected complications. As more people got involved, differing opinions emerged about how the program should be run. Some volunteers wanted to focus solely on scholarships, while others pushed for career workshops and community service projects. The debates often left Jameer feeling caught in the middle. One evening, as he sat at Linda's kitchen table, he vented his frustrations. "I don't know how you do it, Miss Carson. Everyone has their own ideas, and I feel like I'm not doing enough to keep things together." Linda sipped her coffee, her expression thoughtful. "Jameer, leadership isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about staying true to your values and the vision you believe in. People are looking to you because they trust your integrity. Trust yourself, and the rest will follow." Her words stayed with him. Over the next few weeks, Jameer worked hard to find common ground among the volunteers. He listened to their ideas, encouraged collaboration, and reminded everyone of their shared mission, to empower young people like him to reach their potential. Slowly but surely, the program found its rhythm again. A community transformed. As bright futures grew, so did its impact. The scholarship fund began awarding grants to students in need, and Mrs. Henderson's tutoring sessions expanded to include dozens of kids from the neighborhood. Local businesses hosted career days, inviting students to explore fields like engineering, healthcare, and the arts. One Saturday morning, Jameer joined a group of volunteers at a career workshop. He stood at a table displaying blueprints and models, sharing his experiences from his internship with Mr. Jacobs. Parents and students stopped to listen, their faces lighting up as Jameer described his dream of becoming an engineer. A young girl with braids approached him, clutching a sketchpad. "I like to draw buildings," she said shyly, showing him a detailed sketch of a house. "Do you think I could be an engineer someday?" Jameer smiled, his heart swelling. "Absolutely. You've already got the talent. All you need is to keep working hard and believing in yourself." The girl beamed, and Jameer felt a surge of pride. Moments like these reminded him why he was doing this. It wasn't just about his own success. It was about paving the way for others. Unexpected recognition. One afternoon, Linda called Jameer with exciting news. "I got a call from the mayor's office," she said, her voice brimming with excitement. They want to honor you at the Community Awards ceremony next month. Jameer was stunned. Honor me? Why? For your leadership with Bright Futures and for being an inspiration to the community, Linda explained. You've done so much, Jameer. This is their way of saying thank you. The idea of standing on stage in front of a crowd, receiving an award, filled Jameer with equal parts excitement and anxiety. But Linda's encouragement gave him the confidence to accept. On the night of the ceremony, Jameer stood on the brightly lit stage, his heart pounding as the mayor handed him a plaque engraved with his name. Jameer Weston, the mayor said, "You've shown us all that small acts of kindness can create big changes. You're proof that one person can make a difference." The audience erupted in applause, and Jameer felt a lump rise in his throat. As he gazed out at the crowd, he spotted Linda, his mother, Tasha, and even Mr. Jacobs smiling proudly. In that moment, he realized just how far he'd come, and how much farther he could go. A new vision. Later that night, as Jameer sat on his porch with Linda, the plaque resting in his lap, he turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "Miss Carson, do you think Bright Futures could go even bigger? Like, help more kids in other neighborhoods?" Linda smiled, her eyes twinkling. "I don't see why not. If anyone can make it happen, Jameer, it's you." For the first time, Jameer allowed himself to dream beyond his immediate surroundings. Bright Futures was just the beginning. He imagined a network of programs across the city, reaching kids who, like him, just needed a chance. As the stars twinkled above, Jameer felt a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges he faced weren't roadblocks, they were stepping stones, and with the support of his community, he was ready to take the next step toward an even brighter future. A legacy of hope. As Bright Futures continued to grow, so did Jameer's responsibilities. He had gone from a quiet high school junior to a young leader inspiring change in his community. The recognition from the mayor had only solidified his determination to keep pushing forward, but with success came even greater challenges. Jameer began to feel the weight of balancing his personal life, academic goals, and leadership role. Yet every time he thought about slowing down, he remembered why he started. This wasn't just about him. It was about creating opportunities for others, just as Linda Carson had done for him. New Horizons. One afternoon, Linda invited Jameer to meet with a group of philanthropists who were interested in expanding Bright Futures beyond their neighborhood. The meeting was held in a sleek office downtown, the kind of place Jameer had only seen on TV. As they rode the elevator to the top floor, Jameer adjusted his tie nervously. "You've got this," Linda said, giving his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "Just speak from the heart like you always do." When they entered the boardroom, Jameer was greeted by a panel of well-dressed professionals. The lead philanthropist, a sharp-eyed woman named Eleanor Grant, gestured for him to take a seat. "We've heard great things about Bright Futures," she began, her tone warm but professional. "And about you, Jameer. We're considering funding an expansion of your program to other parts of the city. But first, we'd like to hear more about your vision." Jameer swallowed hard, his palms damp against the table. He took a deep breath, drawing strength from Linda's presence beside him. "Bright Futures isn't just a program," he began, his voice steadying as he spoke. "It's a lifeline for kids like me. Kids who have big dreams, but don't always see a path to achieve them. We provide scholarships, mentorship, and opportunities that show them what's possible. I've seen firsthand how much it can change lives, and I believe it can do the same for kids in other neighborhoods." As Jameer spoke, he noticed nods of approval from the panel. Eleanor leaned forward, her eyes bright with interest. "And what about you, Jameer? What's your dream?" For a moment, Jameer hesitated. He had spent so much time focused on helping others that he rarely thought about his own future anymore. But as he looked around the room, he felt a surge of confidence. "I want to be an engineer," he said. "But more than that, I want to be someone who creates opportunities for others, someone who builds bridges, both literally and figuratively." Eleanor's lips curved into a smile. I think you already are. The meeting ended with promises of support, and as Jameer left the office with Linda, he felt a sense of accomplishment he had never known before. Bright Futures was no longer just a local initiative. It was on the cusp of becoming something much bigger. Challenges at home. While Bright Futures flourished, Jameer's home life remained a delicate balancing act. His mother was proud of him, but worried about the pressure he was under. One evening, as Jameer helped her prepare dinner, she spoke up. Jameer, you've been doing so much lately, she said, her tone tinged with concern. I don't want you to burn yourself out. Jameer sighed, setting down the knife he was using to chop vegetables. I'm fine, Mom. I promise. I feel like I can't stop now. People are counting on me. She turned to him, her expression softening. I'm proud of you, son. But remember, you can't help others if you don't take care of yourself. It's okay to ask for help, too. Her words stayed with Jameer. He realized that while he had become a source of strength for so many, he needed to lean on his own support system as well. Mentoring the next generation. As Bright Futures expanded, Jameer began mentoring younger students directly. One of them was a shy 8th grader named Malik, who reminded Jameer of himself at that age. Malik loved science, but struggled with self-confidence and often felt out of place among his peers. During their first meeting, Jameer noticed how Malik avoided eye contact, his voice barely above a whisper. But as they worked together on a small engineering project, a model bridge built from popsicle sticks and glue, Malik began to open up. I don't think I'm smart enough to be an engineer, Malik admitted, his hands fidgeting with a piece of wood. Everyone at school says I should just stick to stuff I'm good at, like drawing. Jameer placed a hand on Malik's shoulder, his voice firm but kind. Don't ever let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. You're smarter than you think, Malik. And drawing. That's a skill engineers use all the time. Ever heard of blueprints? Malik's eyes lit up. Blueprints. Jameer nodded, explaining how creativity and technical skills work together in engineering. By the end of the session, Malik was smiling, his enthusiasm for the project growing. Over the weeks, Malik's confidence blossomed. He started asking more questions, experimenting with designs, and even volunteering to present their projects to the group. Watching Malik's transformation reminded Jameer of why he had started this journey in the first place. A community united. Bright Futures was no longer just a program. It had become a movement. Community events were drawing larger crowds, and local businesses were offering internships and scholarships to students. Jameer often found himself at the center of it all, speaking at events and organizing workshops. One evening, Linda hosted a celebration at her home to honor the volunteers and supporters who had helped make Bright Futures a success. As Jameer stood on her porch, surrounded by friends, family, and community members, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Linda raised a toast, her voice filled with pride. To Jameer, who reminded us all that one small act of kindness can spark a brighter future. You've made us believe in what's possible, Jameer, and we can't wait to see what you'll do next. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jameer felt tears prick the corners of his eyes. He realized that this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone who had come together to create something extraordinary. The road ahead. As Jameer prepared to graduate from high school, he received news that would change his life. With Linda's help, he had secured a full-ride scholarship to a prestigious university to study engineering. The acceptance letter arrived on a sunny morning, and as he read it aloud to his family, their cheers filled the small apartment. You did it, Jameer, Tasha exclaimed, throwing her arms around him. His mother wiped away tears, her smile radiant. I couldn't have done it without all of you, Jameer said, his voice thick with emotion. And Miss Carson, she made all of this possible. Linda, who had come over to celebrate, shook her head. You made it possible, Jameer. I just helped you see what was already inside you. As Jameer looked around at the people who had supported him, he felt a deep sense of purpose. Bright futures would continue to grow, and so would he. The road ahead was filled with challenges, but he knew he was ready to face them. Jameer's story had started with a simple act of kindness, but it had become so much more. It was a legacy of hope, a testament to the power of community, and proof that one person could truly make a difference. Building the future. As the weeks turned into months, Jameer poured his energy into preparing for the next chapter of his life. The full-ride scholarship to a prestigious university felt like a dream come true, but he didn't let it distract him from his work with Bright Futures. The program had become an integral part of his identity, and he wanted to ensure it would continue thriving even after he left for college. Passing the torch. One afternoon, Jameer and Linda sat together on her porch, the scent of lavender wafting through the air. They had gathered to discuss the future of Bright Futures and how to ensure it remained a beacon of hope for the community. "I can't do this alone, Miss Carson," Jameer admitted, looking out at the street. "I'm going to college soon, and I won't be here every day to keep things going." Linda smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "You don't have to do it alone, Jameer. Bright Futures isn't just about you. It's about everyone who believes in what we're doing. It's time to start building a team, teaching others to lead." Jameer nodded, the weight of her words settling over him. He had already been mentoring younger students like Malik, but now he realized the importance of empowering them to take on leadership roles. Over the next few weeks, he worked with Linda to identify volunteers who could help manage the program. Malik, now brimming with confidence, was one of the first to step up. "I want to help other kids like me," Malik said, his voice steady. "You believed in me, Jameer. I want to do the same for someone else." Jameer felt a swell of pride as he saw Malik and others rise to the challenge. The program was no longer just his. It belonged to the community. The farewell event. Before Jameer left for college, the community organized a farewell event to celebrate his achievements and everything he had done for Bright Futures. The event was held at the community center, now bustling with activity thanks to the program's growth. As Jameer stepped onto the stage to address the crowd, he was met with thunderous applause. His heart swelled as he looked out at the sea of familiar faces, his family, Linda, Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Henderson, Mr. Jacobs, and countless students and volunteers who had become part of the Bright Futures family. "Thank you," Jameer began, his voice strong but filled with emotion. "When I started this journey, I didn't think I was doing anything special. I just wanted to return a lost purse. But that small act turned into something so much bigger. It taught me that kindness isn't just about one moment. It's about creating a ripple that touches lives in ways you can't even imagine." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "Bright Futures isn't about me. It's about us, our community, our dreams, and our belief that we can make the world better, one step at a time. I may be leaving for college, but I'll always carry this place, and all of you, in my heart." The applause that followed was deafening, and as Jameer stepped off the stage, he was greeted by hugs, handshakes, and words of encouragement from people whose lives he had touched. A new beginning. On a crisp September morning, Jameer stood in front of his family's small apartment, his packed bags at his feet. His mother hugged him tightly, her tears dampening his shirt. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "You're going to do amazing things." Tasha grinned, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Don't forget about us when you're famous, big bro." Jameer chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Never, Tasha." Linda arrived just in time to see him off. She handed him a small notebook, its cover worn and soft. "This was Kyle's journal," she said softly. "He used to write down his ideas and dreams in here. I think he'd want you to have it." Jameer's throat tightened as he accepted the journal. "Thank you, Miss Carson, for everything." Linda smiled, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "You've already made us proud, Jameer. Now go show the world what you're made of." A legacy of kindness. As Jameer settled into college life, he carried the lessons and memories of Bright Futures with him. He stayed in touch with Linda and the program, mentoring students remotely and providing guidance whenever he could. His engineering classes were challenging but invigorating, and he found himself drawing inspiration from the very community that had shaped him. Meanwhile, Bright Futures continued to thrive under its new leadership. Malik and the other young leaders expanded its reach, organizing new workshops and partnerships that brought even more opportunities to the community. The program became a model for other neighborhoods, inspiring similar initiatives across the city. Years later, as a successful engineer and advocate for education, Jamir returned to his hometown to attend the grand opening of the Bright Futures Community Center, a state-of-the-art facility funded by grants and donations from around the country. Standing beside Linda, now older but just as vibrant, Jamir cut the ribbon to thunderous applause. "This isn't just a building," Jamir said during the opening ceremony. "It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we believe in each other." Bright Futures started with a lost purse and a small act of kindness. Let it remind us all that no act of kindness is ever too small to make a difference. The end of one chapter, the start of another. As Jamir looked out at the crowd, he saw faces both familiar and new, children, parents, and volunteers who had become part of the Bright Futures family. He realized that while his journey had begun with a single choice, it had become part of something much larger. It wasn't just his story anymore. It was a story of hope, resilience, and the power of community. And as he watched Malik guide a group of young students through the new facility, Jamir knew that the future was brighter than ever. His story had come full circle, but the legacy of Bright Futures was only just beginning.